Hey, everybody, and welcome to another board game specialist episode. I am Melanie.
And I'm Carla.
And this week we're going to be talking about our top 9 tile laying games. And I'll just point out right now, I might have taken some liberties with this description a little bit, just because I really wanted these games on my list. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've played. So, Carla, what have you played so far this past week?
I played quite a few games, but one thing that stood out was last Sunday I got to go and play with 2 Eat 1 Sheep, Chrissy and Nick.
Oh, nice.
In Edmonton. Yeah, they hosted
Yes.
a game day, and she taught me Creature Comforts, some 8, and then Nick taught me Dune Imperium. Finally got to play that one.
How is it?
It's good, yeah. It's... You know how people compare it to Lost Ruins of Arnak? I think it's only by, like, mechanism only, basically.
Yeah.
Like, it does have some worker placement, does have some deck building. But there's also some area control in there as well. But, yeah, it was really neat. He had the collector's edition, I think it was. So he had all of the upgraded plus the expansion. So we got to play with, I think, all of it. But, yeah,
Nice.
it was
So was
really
that at Up2Game or?
Yeah.
Nice. I want to make it there sometime.
Yeah. No, it was fun. It was neat to meet
Sounds
them.
great.
What about you? What have you been playing?
Oh, it's been great. So me and Lee and the kids have been playing a few games of Dice Throne, and Nick has declared it his most favorite game.
Oh, perfect.
So we've played that a few times. I played it as a vampire the one time and just slaughtered everybody. And I say that, but it's not really. It's so well balanced that we all seem to die at the same time. Like, it's all like we're looking around, we all have like 5 health. So, but I ended up winning, and it was pretty good. She would hit by quite a bit. Patrick played as the Shadow Thief, and he would sneak out of the attacks so often. It was annoying. So we kind of teamed up a bit against him. So, but that was great. And then yesterday I had a game night, so I had a few friends over, and then we played 10, which is a card game where you're trying to create runs on each colors, but it's a bit of a push your luck because you flip the card over, and if it's a card that has the black tokens on it, then that counts as a negative score. So that's good. You can flip more cards, and you flip the next card, and it could be a number. If it's ever a wild, then that gets auctioned off, and you use your tokens, like those black tokens, to bid on these cards. And then if it's a number, then that adds on to your score. So if you have like a 3 token card and then you flip a 5, then it's -3 plus 5, so you're sitting at 2. If you ever get over 10, you bust. So all those cards goes into the market. Everybody else collects the money that's been flipped, and you would get a 3 coin token, like a white token instead. And I mean, we were playing, and then he and Maya are on the same side, and our side of the table have almost no cards. It was really sad, but because you're trying to create these runs. And I mean, like, I had some runs, it's like, okay, well, in blue I have a run of 1 card, so I get 1 point. Like, it was a little bit pathetic, but I mean, my longest run I think was 7 maybe, and it goes from 1 to 9. That's the most you could get, right? But so that one was neat. It's, simple to learn, simple to play, kind of neat to it. So it was fun.
It's a fun one. We played that one at Christmas. It went over really well.
Yeah. And then after that, we played Shipshape, which is neat. It's everybody gets like a ship card, and you're pirates, and the whole thing is about traveling with cargo and putting cargo in your ship. And you have these square tiles that have cutouts of it, and then there's like some areas that's covered up, and you can flip it, you can rotate them, and you're putting these on your cargo, but it's a 3x3 cargo, and some of the spaces have rats, and the rats are going to be worth negative points. So when you put your cargo, you're trying to cover that up. And depending on what's covered up and what's showing up at the end, how you're going to score. So you score all the gold that you have. Then the cannon, whoever has the lowest cannon, that's everybody's cannon score gets negative that many cannons. So whoever has the lowest cannon ends up scoring nothing. And then the contraband, whoever has the most contraband, their contraband got seized. So you don't want to have the most, but you want to have second most ideally, because then you get a higher score. Mm-hmm. And then if you manage to cover all the 9 squares, then you would get a bonus 8 coins. And you do this 3 times, so you score 3 times. But what's really interesting, like you kind of look at the tiles because they're all stacked. You can't touch them, but you can look kind of through the holes and stuff. It's like, oh, well, the third card has like a 7 gold. I kind of want to get that one. Or it's like, oh, that one has a corner that would cover that rat really well. So you kind of have an idea of which tile you might want. But then you have cards that goes from 1 to 10, and you secretly select one, and you flip them over. And if it's ties with anybody else, it gets discarded and put aside, and you go into like the second set of bidding. But if you are the highest, then you take the top tile. Second position takes the second tile, and so on. So, I mean, like you could be putting a 5 and say, okay, well, I kind of want the one at the bottom, so I'm going to put a 5, and everybody else put an 8, but they all put the 8, so they all eliminate each other, and turns out your 5 is the top one, and then you take the top tile instead. So it was really neat. It plays super simple, like it plays super quick as well, so that was good. And that went over well. And then we also played Skull, so kind of managed to get that one off the shelf of shame yesterday. It was great. And it's all, you have coasters, and there's 4 coasters, and I had read about it or heard about it, and then it made a bunch of top 100 lists and stuff. I was like, okay, well, that sounds okay. We read the rule. We watched a tutorial video because the rule was confusing. But it was just like, okay, like kind of reading and listening to it. I'm not sure why this is so great, but it's getting great reviews. And then we got playing, and right away I'm terrified of flipping a skull. And I don't know why I'm so emotionally involved in this game, but I really was. And we kind of got going, and then all of a sudden Michael's up getting a point, and he's bidding, and now like you don't really want to outbid him, but you have to, because if he gets a second point he would win. Maya, she was bidding crazy, but she ended up losing all of her coasters, so she was eliminated. It was really neat, actually. So you kind of go around, you put a coaster face down in front of you, you have 3 flowers and 1 skull. And when you bid and you decide you're going to, let's say you bid 3, so you have to find coasters that has just flowers and trying to avoid the skulls. You only know what's in front of you. But maybe I'm bidding 3 trying to bluff and have somebody bid 4 because I know there's a skull on mine. And you have to flip yours first. But maybe nobody does, and I flip it over and I have a skull. Then if you have a skull, you lose one of your coasters. Or, you know, maybe I know mine are flowers, so I have 2 there, so I could just find 1 more. And you kind of try to read the people at the table who's kind of hinting that they want to bid. Well, they kind of hinting they want to bid because they're bluffing, or they hinting they wanted to bid because they know they have flowers. So it was a really interesting one, and that went over well. And then, like, the pièce de résistance for the game night is I finally got to play Marvel Dice Throne, which is not even out yet. The Kickstarter is coming out this summer, and this was a pre-production copy, which is like exactly what the Kickstarter version will look like, and that was just amazing. I played as Doctor Strange, and there was Loki on the table, there was the Scarlet Witch, and then Spider-Man. And it's so neat how each, like, it plays like Dice Throne. It's definitely a Dice Throne game, but each mechanism is kind of unique to the character, and it just works and makes sense for that character. So it was great. Oh, and I won, so that's great too.
That's always great.
Right.
Awesome.
So those are the games I played. Yeah. Now, before we get into our top 9 laying games, do you have an honorable mention you want to bring?
Well, funny you should ask. Yeah, I do have one, only because I had just received it about a week and a half ago. It's called Paris, la Cité de la Lumière. Probably butchered the French. Sorry, Melanie.
Paris, la Cité de la Lumière.
There, thank you.
There you go.
Anyway, it's really cute. It's just a 2-player game, and I've only played it once, so I'm thinking with more plays it would have possibly made this list. It's really neat. It's a polyomino game, so there's kind of 2 rounds to it. So you each kind of place these square tiles on the board, and the board is actually inside the box, the bottom of the box.
Okay.
So there's, I think, 16 squares in total. So each of you have an 8, and you'll place them strategically because each of the squares has 4 squares in the square. And some will have your color of tile, some will have your partner's color of tile, and then some have a neutral color. So you're kind of placing them so that you can eventually place some polyomino tiles on them that would cover your tile and the neutral tile. So you have to figure out, like if you had like a T, that would fit into these squares that are placed around. So you can either place a square or you can grab a polyomino. It's a building, basically. So you're going back and forth in this first round, and you're doing that. And then you possibly may grab one of those tiles, but then your partner blocks you somehow and you won't be able to place it. But in the second round, you haven't placed those little tiles yet. You will place them in the second round. But you also have all these postcards around the game board, and they give you like special abilities or little like cheats through the game that can give you, like, you could place maybe on one of their colors or something, or you can get more points. But the whole point is there's these street lamps all over as well on these square tiles, and you want to place your buildings around these street lamps because that's what gives you points. And you also want to try to connect your longest like chain of buildings because that gives you lots of points as well. So there's all these different ways of scoring and kind of blocking your partner or just giving you more street lamps because you can add a little street lamp, or there's artists that'll give you special abilities. It's a really neat back and forth game, almost like a little bit of a chess match, but with fun pieces. It's really neat. That's one I think could have possibly made this list with more plays.
Nice. Yeah, no, it sounds interesting. And it's definitely been kind of talked about all around lately. Yeah.
It was kind of a slower burn. Like when it first came out, you didn't really hear of it, but then slowly people started talking about it. It's starting to be on lots of lists. So I had to check it out, and I agree. It's really neat. Yeah.
Sounds great. I also have an honorable mention. Mainly, this is my number 10, would have been my number 10. Because I mentioned there's a couple in here that I'm like, is this really a tile laying game? I mean, there's tiles. So I was like, okay, well, I'll mention my number 10, which in itself is like, is this really a tile laying game? So it might not be the best honorable mention, but I wanted to bring up Shifting Stones.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So you've got the 9 tiles on the middle of the table, and you've got the different one. Like you got some that there's just one of them. Some have 2 of the color and design, and some have 3. And they're double-sided, so they're one color on one side, there's a different color on the other side, and you get cards. And on the cards you have patterns. So it'll have like some of those tiles like side by side, and it could be like if you get those tiles side by side anywhere in that 3x3 grid, then you would get to score that card. Some of them is if this particular color is in the top corner, then you would get to score that card, and different cards are worth different points. But what's really interesting too is that you can discard a card to flip a tile over to the other color, or you can discard a card to flip the tile with another tile that's sharing a side. And you're trying to move these tiles to create the patterns you have on your cards to score the card, but you're giving up some cards in order to move the things around. So I mean, it definitely has tile. It's not one of the games where you put down tiles as you play, but it's such a neat, interesting one. Yeah, you're moving them. So it's such a neat, interesting one. Oh, and then Shifting Stone was published actually in 2020, so it's pretty new. By J. Evan Raitt, and it's published by Game Rights.
Nice.
So that was my number.
That one's fun.
Yeah. So what's your number 9?
My number 9 is called Yinsch. It's a 2003 game by Chris Sperm, and it's part of the GIF series that I've been talking about. So it's just a simple, like, little pieces. Each have 5 rings. One will have white, one will have black. It's a 2-player game. And you'll place these rings around on a grid board. So you'll place them all over, and then the game will kind of begin. That's just the setup. And so you can move your rings. Before you move it, you're going to place this round piece in the middle of it. So I would place the white side if I was white, and then I can move my ring. Now I can move it in a straight line anywhere, and I can jump anyone's flat pieces, but I can't jump other rings. So what I'm trying to do is get 5 of my white colors in a row, 5 of my white flat discs.
Okay.
So in order to do that, anytime I jump any other flat disc, they will flip over. So if I'm jumping, like, say he's got like 3 black ones, and I can jump over all of them, those will all flip to white. So the one I'm leaving will be there, plus those 3. So I'd have 4 already. So you kind of go back and forth, and sometimes you have to flip over some of yours to black in order to get into a better space to be able to jump another way to flip. And so anyway, once you do flip 5 of your own color, you will take those all off the board, and then you take one of your rings and you kind of place it in this spot on the board. And the first person to have all 3 rings, so they've basically jumped, or they basically collected 5 of their chips 3 times, will win the game. And it's really neat because you kind of go back and forth and you just think, okay, I've got it. I've got 5 here. I just have to set this one up. And then next turn, he jumps one of them and screws the whole thing up. And then you have to kind of figure it out again to go back and try and get another 5 in a row. It's fun. I've played it with 3 different people right now, and they love it.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It goes over well.
I'm loving that gift series. I only have 2 of the games so far, but I think I have 2 more on the way.
Perfect. So for my number 9, actually this is a game that I won from a Chit Chat episode of Man vs. Meeple.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so it was neat. It's like people were messaging me. He's like, Melanie, I think you won. So I went and checked it out. And then this game is Micropolis. It was published in 2018 by Bruno Cathala and Charles Cavalier, and published by Metagot Games. And it's so neat. Like, you have these tiny little minis of ants, and they're little army ants. And on your turn, you have like the middle portion that holds, I think it's like 8 ants. So that's what you start with. And you have all these pie-shaped tiles that kind of in an order there. And you add them to your anthill. Basically, you're building an anthill. And there's different things that's going to score. So a queen, you'll have like each tile has different things on it. So that has tunnels, and you got to connect these tunnels. And you're trying to make a really nice long tunnels. You're trying to get tunnels that has a bunch of different fruits in it, and ants in there. And then you want to have your tunnel with the queen because you get to score that extra, but you can't, or you don't score it if the queen is sharing it with another queen, because they got to be the main event. And each turn you add a tile to your anthill, and if you don't want the first tile that's available to you, you got to put one of your ants on it, skip to the next one, and so on. And you kind of select the tile that would kind of give you the most out of, like what you're trying to score, because you score on the fruit, you score on the largest anthill tunnel, you score your queen, you score your army, because you can have like your army barracks that you would fill in with ants, and each ant that you have at the end are worth points as well. So you're trying to get anthills that has a nursery on it so you can collect more ants. And then of course, if you take the tile that has a whole bunch of ants on it because people were skipping it, then you get those ants as well. And it's just a neat, kind of unique theme. I haven't seen it anywhere else before, but it's so interesting building this anthill, and you're all doing this, taking turn, and then kind of scoring at the end. And it's so neat, very fun, and it looks great. So that was my number 9, Micropolis.
Yeah, I've never played that one. No, I've seen a couple reviews of it, but yeah, that would be interesting. My number 8 is called Streets. It's a 2021 game by Hacken Garder. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, it's a tile laying game where you're building a city together. And I think it goes up to 4 players. And so you have these big square tiles. It starts out where there's 2 tiles and they're kind of perpendicular to each other because you're building kind of a community. And you have 4 different color meeples on them. Now, when you place a tile, depending what color of meeple placement that you have on, you'll place that certain color. And then once you finish a street, so you've got all like one, say, vertical, or like not vertical, but so you have one perpendicular to this tile, and then you build off, and then you end that street, then you'll score that whole street. So whoever has their little markers on each of the tiles will score each of the tiles, and they all score differently. But the neat thing is these little people will then stand up and they want to move to a different part of the city. And if you've ended the street, you'll get to move them to where you want to. So you can move them to other tiles that you have, and the more people on each tile, you'll score. So if you have, say, some green ones and there's no green tiles out there, then they will just stand up and wait. So then the next person could place a green tile somewhere and they will all move to that tile. So it's kind of neat because they call it FOMO. They have FOMO. They have to stand up and wait, and they're just anxiously waiting to go to another place that suits them. Because you have these little hipsters, you have little tourists, but the scoring tiles are all completely different. So it's neat because you can score for, you know, different types of people or different symbols on different tiles. And then there's also, you have your own player ability, so you can do special things throughout the game. But it's just a really fast-playing city building, like mini city building game. It's really neat.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that was your number 8.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So my number 8 is the game that I'm like, I'm not sure if this is really a tile-laying game, but I'm putting it on my list anyways. And that's Mansion of Madness. It was published in 2016, designed by Nikki Valens, and it was published by Fantasy Flight Games. And this one is just, it's so neat. So it's a dungeon crawl, basically, and you're going into this haunted mansion. And it's, you know, you're trying to collect so many things to stop the cultists from awakening the next demon or whatever. This is definitely Cthulhu themed. Which I love. And you start in there, but like you have your main tile and you can see the doors of where you can go. And, you know, it's like, okay, well, we could go this one and find out what's on that side or this one. So, but in the main tile, you're seeing things as well. And they'll be like, okay, well, there's something on the floor here you can go inspect. And I see that there's a weapon on the floor over there, so we could go pick that up. And so, and it's just so neat. And this is the app-driven one. And the way I normally play it is I have the app connected to the TV so everybody can kind of see, and it reads it to you. And then you're going around and you're say, okay, I'm going to go there. And then you bring in the next tile. So you kind of you grab the tile that comes up, and it looks super amazing as well. Like the attention to detail on there. And then you open it and say, okay, well, there's a carpet and it's a little bit burned on the side there. You know, like you could see all of those details. It's really well made. And then you go into there and it's like, oh my God. And then this monster pops up and all this stuff. So it's such a neat kind of going through the story, placing out the tile, building this big, huge mansion as you play, and you're traveling, and you'll die probably most of the time because they're just, or you go insane. I had the first time I played it was with my sister, her boyfriend, and our friend Allison, and 2 of them go insane. And it was interesting because when Jeff went insane, he had a card. And he's like, hey, you're not trusting anybody else on your party. So then we're like, hey, give me the thing and I'll take it there. I was like, no, I'm not giving that to you. It's like, oh my God, because we're still playing co-op, but he's not really cooperative anymore. So it was so weird. And my sister went insane and I was like, oh no, I'm not trusting her. But her insanity card says no, there's no effect. You're very strong-minded and willed, so there was no effect for her. But now we're not trusting her because we know she got an insanity card, but we don't know what it says. So it was interesting. It was neat. And then played it again, and it's just such a fun, beautiful looking game when you have it all set up, and the story that develops from it is great. So that's my number 8, Mansion of Madness.
I've never played that one. I've played Mountains of Madness.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit similar, but that one sounds a little bit better. So my number 7 is Azul from Michaeling Kiesling, made in 2017. This is such a beautiful little tile laying game. The pieces and the color, it's just so beautiful. They have 5 different colors, I think, and they all go together so nice. And the tiles are that, they call them Bakelite or something, but they feel so heavy and nice. So everybody has a player board, and in the middle between everyone are all these little round factories, and that's where you place 4 tiles to start. So you just draw them out of bag, so it's just random. And then you take turns, and you'll each pull off however many of the same color from one of the factories, and then the rest go into the middle. And then you'll place them on your board, and you put them on the left side of your board, so it'll have, you can only put the same color in one row. So you'll place them and go around till all the tiles are done. And once the round is done, you'll push them over into because you're building, now I forget if you're building a glass factory. Anyway, so you're placing them over, and you're trying to get them to connect all of them, because that'll give you more points. You'll move one over, and the first one you place is 1 single point. The next one you move over, because you would have to have completed the row in order to slide it over. And you will place it, and if it's next to another one, then you'll get to add both of those together. And the same goes with the next one. If you can connect them all, then you'll get 3 points. So that's how the first scoring starts. And then you'll just keep going around. Like you could have up to, I think the most you'd have is maybe 6 rounds, because as soon as somebody has a complete row, then the game will end. And you will score each of your rows. You'll score for columns, and if you have all of the same color on each of your rows, you'll get like a big 10-point bonus. It's such a beautiful, like, Zen-like game. You just sit back and you place your tiles. You can kind of screw over the other person at the end of the round, because you have to take tiles. And if your board's kind of full and they have to take like 4 blue tiles and they have nowhere to place them, well, there's like a negative part at the bottom where they have to place them, and each tile is worth some negative points. The other thing is, once all the tiles are pushed into the middle, you can take from the middle, but the first person to do that has to take this negative tile, which also gives them first player next turn. But they have to place that one in the negative, and any others that they can't fit on their board. It's a really neat game because we have a little player mat that it's a 2-player, and it's just beautiful. You just roll it out, and it could just almost display on a table as a runner. It's so beautiful. They have 4 in the series right now. The fourth one hasn't made it to North America yet, but I really enjoyed the first one and the third. I've tried the second one, not a huge fan of that, but the fourth one coming out has hexagon tiles, and you're building a queen's garden. It looks really beautiful as well. Have you played Azul?
Yeah, I do have Azul. Love it. I played Azul Summer Pavilion, the third one.
Yes, I like that one too.
It plays very similar, but it's different enough that, and to me, like I was of the feeling that it plays similar enough that I don't think I would own both in my collection, but it's, if I hadn't have any and I would just get one, I would get Summer Pavilion.
Yeah, it is.
But I already have Azul, so just sticking with that one. But it is neat, like those chunky bits, and then like they're so satisfying to play with. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
nice,
that was
like
the number
patio game.
Right, yeah, you
You know?
definitely could with that one for
Hmm.
sure. And that was your number 7, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So my number 7 is Super Motherload. And that one was published in 2015. It's designed by Gavin Brown and Matt Tolman, and it was published by Roxley Games. And this one is so neat. It is so neat. And you start and you have your board, and you have 2 board on the table, and it's all underground, and they've different depending on where you're going. Some space have rock, some is dirt, but there's stuff in the dirt, and you'll have diamonds, and you have minerals and different things that's kind of clumped up in the dirt, and then some will have like treasures in there that you don't know what it's going to be until you look it up. But this is a deck building game. So each player have their own set of cards, and in order to dig, and this is where the tile laying comes in, because you'll have your cards. Okay, well, I'm going to do this kind of digging, and this particular digging can actually dig through the rock or the different things, and it'll be depending on the action that you're doing, the tile that you're going to place on this dirt. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm digging this way, so you put like a 1x3 tile, and it covers where you're digging, and what gets covered up is stuff that you have dug up and you get to collect, and it goes in your resources. And you're going to be spending that to upgrade your cards and get more and stronger cards that's going to be able to dig bigger, and so on. But you have to dig off where you've dug through, because you're kind of building a tunnel through the dirt. And at some point, when you reach the second board, because you've gone deeper, well, then the first board goes away and the third board gets pulled out, because you're now deeper underground and there's more stuff that you're kind of coming across, and you're continuing to kind of keep digging through that and collecting the treasures and the minerals and all these resources that you have in there, and upgrading your cards and trying to get to the bottom. It is so neat. And then you're adding these little black tiles that kind of covers the dirt of what you've dug up, and it's so cool. It is such a neat looking game, and it has that steampunk theme to it. Like the cards has that type of artwork to it, so it looks interesting, and the gameplay is very neat as well. And it's just kind of neat putting the tiles down as you build your tunnels and going through, and then kind of adding more board, and the upper board are going away. It's kind of a neat mechanism as you're getting deeper underground. So that was my number 7, Super Motherload.
Yeah, that's a great game. That one just missed my list, but I really like it. My number 6 is Barenpark by Phil Walker Harding from 2017. This is my favorite polyomino tile laying to date. So what you're doing is building a bear park. So there's all different types of bears that you're on these tiles, and you start with this one board, and you'll place a tile, and whatever you cover up will depend what you get. So if you say cover up a green piece of, I think it's a green wheelbarrow, you'll get to choose from these like smaller green tiles. And then if you cover up a construction site, you'll get to grab a new board to add on to your board. And you end up with 4 boards, and you're trying to completely cover your whole board, except for this one spot on each of your board. And that's where you'll take this little statue. As soon as you have covered everything but that little one spot, you get to grab a statue. And they start at high points. I think the highest is 20, so you'll grab the 20. And then the next person to do it will get to grab like a 19 or 18. They might go by 2 points. Anyway, so you'll fill your board. Once you've filled 4 complete boards, the game will end. Everyone will get one more turn. And so it's a little bit of a race. You're trying to complete it as fast as possible, but also with as most points as possible. There's a little expansion that comes with it where you're building up little subways across, and those will give you extra points too. But the neat part is like trying to figure out what to cover up, because if you can cover up 2 or 3 different things, then you can get 3 tiles, and then you have better options for next round. There's also these little goal tiles that you're trying to complete before everyone else as well, because they start with higher points. So you may need to connect like 3 of your green tiles together in order to get this, or you may have to have 3 panda bears on your board first, and then you'll get that tile, which will give you higher points. It's just a fun, like really neat little polyomino game with a really cool theme. I love bears. I love animals. Any kind of animal game usually gets me. Have you played this one?
Yeah, I've heard lots of good things about it, but I not have played it yet.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
So it's one that I would need to here at some point.
Yeah, we'll play
Perfect.
it.
That was your number 6.
Yes.
So my number 6 is the oldest game on my list so far. It was published in 2003. And it's Alhambra by Dirk Henn, published by Queen Games. And I got this one secondhand kind of, in the last 3-4 years probably. And, because I'm fairly new into the board game hobby. I think it was 2017 when I kind of fully got into it. And what's really neat is all these games are new to me, right? So there's a lot of potential and possibility out there. And I got this one because I had heard good things about it, and I got playing it, and I'm like a couple of rounds in, I'm like, okay, I can tell I'm going to love this one. And it's so good. And what's really interesting is on your turn, you either collect currency, and there'll be different money that's kind of put up, but they are different colors. So you have the green money, the orange money, or whatever, and then you kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to take this much or whatever, and a 5 blue, and then you kind of add that to your currency. And then, or on your turn, you can grab a tile and purchase a tile to add to your Alhambra. And yeah, so there's 4 different, I guess, architect that is building these Alhambras that you can purchase for. But if you want to buy the one from the architect from the blue city or whatever it is, you have to pay him in the blue currency. And the green one has to be paid in green currency, and so on. So, and you'd be like, okay, well, this one would be perfect to put in there, but I don't quite have enough of that currency. And so I'm going to go and collect some currency and hope that that one is available there. And then when you're buying these tiles, you don't make change. So you're looking at the currency you've collected, and it's like, well, I went for the 5 because it's nice big numbers, and I was able to buy it now, but now I have to overpay by $3 or whatever. So then you overpay, you get the tile, you get to add it into your, I guess, I'm not sure what Alhambra is, but like village center, I guess, that you're building. Yeah. And it's kind of neat. So, but if you are able to pay the exact price, then you get a benefit for it. And as you're building these things, there's some rules. So some of the tiles have black walls, and it has to all be interconnected. You can't build something that creates like an opening that's not connected to your village center. And you're trying to create this longest wall as well. And in the tile or the card that you kind of flip, there'll be one that all of a sudden, like, in the currency money, you'll flip one and it'll be like, oh, you score. And there's 2 scoring opportunities somewhere in these cards, and then you score at the end as well. So then when it's like, oh, okay, great, well, we score. So then you kind of score. Whoever has the most white tiles score so many points. Whoever has the most, so you kind of score a couple of times, but you never know for sure when that's going to happen. It's so neat, and it's kind of neat where you're building this thing and then kind of creating your wall in the shape that it's taking, and having the currency, trying to buy the tile that you want. It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
it's a great game. That's your number 6?
That was my number 6.
My number 5 is Dragon Castle. It's a 2017 game by Halmer Hawk, Luca Ricci, and Lorenzo Silva. It's the same type of tiles as Azul, only they're even thicker and bigger.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, you basically are placing these mahjong tiles.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever played mahjong?
On computer.
Yeah. So that's what they're all shaped like. You fill up the board first, so you'll have, some will be 3 stacks high, some will be 2, and some will be just flat. So there's a similar mechanism. You have to pull off one from the top, and then you can pull a matching one from the outside of anywhere, as long as it's not stuck in the middle of something. Like if there's one wide side open, you can take that tile. But you always have to pull one from the top. So if you can find a matching one, you can take them both. And you each have a player board, and you'll place them on your player board anywhere. You can place them together or apart. But once you have at least 4 that are touching, then you need to flip them. So they flip over, and then they're just plain like white on the back. You can place a little top, like a little top of a house, and you put it on top, and then that would score at the end of the game. The higher you put those, the more they'll score. So sometimes you kind of want to build just a base that is flipped and then start, because you can build on top of these white tiles as well. So if you don't have a matching tile, you can just take one tile, and then you can take one of these little black roofs again. And so you can have a whole like stack of those black roofs that you're going to put on. Anyway, so then you'll just go throughout the game, and you'll be pulling off tiles and trying to make like collections of the same color. They don't have to be the exact same style as long as they're the same color. And then you'll keep flipping them, and you can have some on the flat ground and some like right beside it, say on level 2 or 3, because they're still adjacent to each other. Once you flip them, then you can put your little roof on top of even the higher one. And you'll just go around till you're down to the one level left. And then if there's no more matching ones, you can take these other tiles at the bottom, which are just with points. And once those are all gone, the game ends, and then you just add up your score. But there's also a little spirit card that gives you power. So you can always tap into that spirit and use a certain power that everyone shares throughout the game. Then there's also a dragon card that will give you extra end-game points. Like if you've built certain colors, or how many of them together, or the little roofs together, like they're all kind of different. But it's another one of those little Zen-like games where you're just pulling tiles off, building your own little thing here, trying to build up as high as you can with as many colors as you can. But the other players are going to try to take the colors you need, of course, because as soon as you get 4, you need to flip them. So sometimes you will strategically try to place them apart so that you don't have to just flip 4. Because if you flip 4, you'll get, say, 2 points, I think. But if you could arrange it so that you flip like 8 at a time, you'll get like 6, 7, 8 points. So the more you can flip at once, the higher the points will be. And certain colors are a little bit more rare. So if you flip those, you'll get to place 2 roofs instead of just 1. So it's really neat. It's a thinky game, but it's still pretty relaxing, and it's just beautiful. It just looks beautiful on the board.
Yeah, I've seen pictures, and it is nice looking for sure.
Yes, it is.
Perfect. And that was your number 5.
Yes.
Perfect. So for my number 5, I have Castle of Madkin Ludwig. This one was published in 2014 and designed by Ted Alspash, and it's a Bezier game. And it is such a neat game. The first thing I would mention is this game has no insert, and it has like 100 different tiles, and it's just like all loose in there. My friend printed me a 3D insert that you just kind of pull out, the player board goes on top of it as a lid, and you just pull that out, and then it's all set up and
that's
organized.
Awesome.
And it looks
a big
amazing. It looks amazing. So if you have a 3D printer, or a friend who has a 3D printer, or know someone with a 3D printer, and you have this game, bother them until they make it for you. Because it just makes such a difference and looks amazing. But Castle back in Ludwig is so interesting as well. So you'll have some goals that'll come up, and you'll score for the most little rooms, or you'll score for the most outdoor space, or whatever. And then those are like the public goals. And then each player has their own personal goals that they're trying to score as well. And on the turn, there'll be, depending on the number of players, there'll be so many pieces that are flipped up. And the active player is going to be organizing the order of these rooms and how much each are going to cost. And he organizes that first, and he's going to be like, okay, well, I can see that that player would really want this one because that would go well there. So I'm going to make that one expensive. And I kind of want this one, so I'm going to make that one cheaper, but not too cheap that somebody's going to buy it from me. So I'll go mid-range on this one. And you're kind of organizing the rooms that way. And you all start with your foyer, and then you add all these different things. And then the rooms are hilarious, right? You'll have, you know, some part of the kitchen, and it's all detailed, and they're all weirdly shaped, and you're adding these things, and you're kind of creating a blueprint of what this castle is like. And then you can add corridors, and you can have stairs that'll go down into the basement, and then you build yourself like a dungeon down there or whatever, and then you kind of come back
Snake
up and you
pits
add
and stuff.
It's so neat. It is so neat. And then, but some things have different rules, right? Like, so the entertainment rooms, if they're next to a bedroom, then the bedroom's going to score negative points. So you're trying not to do that. And then at certain points, you'll be scoring your castle all the way it is. And you do that a few times. But it's so satisfying as how you're building this castle, and you visually see a blueprint of this castle, and it looks so great. And it is so neat. And that was my number 5, Castle of Madkin Ludwig.
I can't believe I forgot this one on my list. You know why? Because I sold it. And you know why I sold it? Because I have the big collector's edition coming.
Oh, no, that's great.
Yeah, so I was looking through all my shelves. Wasn't there. It would be definitely on this list. I love that game. It's so fun.
It's so good.
Yeah, but the setup is terrible. So that's awesome that you have that. I'm hoping this one has a good, it definitely has nice inserts, but that it's for easier setup, because it is quite a big setup. But worth it. So fun.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. So my number 4 is our first crossover. Well, besides that one that we just talked about. And that's Alhambra.
Ah, there you go.
Yes. So I think you already mentioned it's 2003 by Durkheim. But it's such a neat game. I love building that. The Alhambra. And I don't know if you have the big box. Do you just have the base game?
Yeah.
So I have the big box, and it has all these different expansions, but I have to say my absolute favorite expansion is the coins. So when you buy a building and you overpay, you don't get like the exact change, but you do get to draw out of a bag a coin. I think just one. And it's a color. So if you might draw out a green coin, and the next time you can add that to make perfect change, once you have a bunch of coins, then that helps you make perfect change to take another turn after. There's so many expansions that are in there that are really neat, but that's probably my favorite one, the coins. I just love building those things and trying to match walls to walls and openings to openings, and then trying to figure out what I need to get to score higher for each tile. But yeah, good choice. I love Alhambra. Haven't played it in a while, but I got to pull it up. Yeah, the coin sounds like it would
make it interesting too.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Perfect. So that was your number 4?
Yes.
So for my number 4, I have Sorcerer City. It was published in 2020 by Scott Caputo, and it was published by Druid City Games. And this one is such an interesting one. And warning on this one, you need to have a lot of table space. When we played it, and I can't remember if we played 4 or 5 players, we had like a higher player count. So we had my table that extends into this big, large square. So it's a 4 feet by 4 feet square. And then we had some TV trays on the side to put some stuff there. And then we used the counter for it was a table hog. It took a lot of space. But every player has this base set of tiles. And then when you start, you have these tiles that are all face down, and there's a timer. So you start the timer and you flip one tile one at a time, and you got to add it on. And these tiles have different colors. So it could be like, there's a triangle green on this corner and the triangle pink on that corner. So it's kind of cuts it off. Or it could be like there's green and green on each side, and then there's yellow in the middle that kind of connects both ends, like an hourglass shape or whatever. So, and there's all these different shape colors on these tiles, or it could be this one is all green or whatever, and you have to add them into this pattern, and they have to all touch side, and you're trying to create clusters of colors as much as possible. But you're on a time crunch as well, and you can't look ahead of what's coming. And if you get a tile, it's like, well, darn it, I don't need this color right now. I don't have, like, you have to place it and you can't move it. So you're creating this thing, and it's all real time, and everybody's doing this. And then it's like, okay, time. And if you didn't put all your tiles, well, you didn't put all your tiles. And the different colored clusters, you score them, and you have like this kind of board, the player board, that kind of you move your things to kind of keep up as to, well, I've collected 8 of these and I have 5 purples and all this stuff. And then some will give you access to money, some will give you access to points. Actually, it's just pure points that you can take. Some you can convert them into another color, so you can kind of try to boost that one color. But there's you're trying to have the most of the one color from all the other players as well, so you get the benefit. And then based on what you've collected, you can go and buy new tiles that gets added into your pile, so that you create this bigger clusters and stuff. And then you'll have some tiles that have special abilities, and then you'll have some tiles that are negative tiles, and everybody's given this monster, and then when that one comes up, it creates something in your cluster that you're creating that's like, oh, darn it, now you can't have anything touching it. So it's like, well, I'm going to put that over to this side. And it's just interesting as to how the game developed, and that real-time element to it. And you're creating this, like grid as quickly as you can. It's like, oh, darn it, that's totally messed up. It's like, oh, no, this is looking pretty good. Oh, I've got this really long line. And it could be that you're trying to create a straight line, or this one could be like a zigzaggy line, but you're trying to create this cluster. It's very neat. It is very neat. It is hectic. It takes tons and tons of table space, but it was so fun the time we played it. So I got my own copy now. I haven't actually played it yet, so I haven't played this one many times yet. But I just remember it being so good that it made my list anyways. So that was my number 4, Sorcerer City.
That one stresses me out.
I could see that. Like the whole, oh my God, okay, we can do it now, quick.
Well, the first round's okay, because you don't have too many tiles. The second one, a little bit, it's all right. But they do have a little app that has the timer, and then there's music during the timer. Yeah. I think that music stresses me out. Because you kind of know when you're getting to the end, and you're like, no, I have like 8 tiles left I have to place. But those stupid monsters come out, and you're like, no. Yeah. Yeah. It's stressful, but yeah, it's definitely fun. Good one. Okay, my number 3, I just realized I lied. I do have another polyomino game here, and that's Isle of Cats, 2019 game by Frank West. This one is also a drafting game, because you start out with a hand of cards, and you draft 2 of them, and then you'll pass them on, and so on until you're down to where everybody has a hand of, I think it's 6 or 8 cards. And in these cards, you have to choose some baskets for your cats, because you're capturing these cats to try and rescue them from this evil, I can't remember his name, but he's on this island. You're trying to capture these cats, put them in your boat so that you can take them from this island. So you need baskets in order to take cats. And baskets cost fish. So you do start with a permanent basket, but you need to get some other baskets. And within the cards, there's also some end game scoring cards, or cards that will give you little treasures that can help fill your boat as well. You can also have little boots on these cards, and the more boots that you play, the higher up in player order you'll be, because then you'll get first choice of the cats that are out there. So anyway, you draft these cards, and then you'll play however many boots and baskets that you want to play for the round, and then you're going to choose the tiles. So you have to pay for your cards first with the fish. You start with, I think, 20 fish, but you also have to pay for the cats with fish, because I think you're bribing them into your boat with these fish, right? So you have one side where you can buy these fish or these cats for 4 fish, and the other side you have to pay 5 fish for these cats. And these cats are all little polyomino tiles, and you want to place them on your boat. Well, you have this big board that is boat, and you want to place these tiles. Specifically, you want to cover a certain little colored flag with the same color of cat, because when you do that, you get to take a common treasure, which is another smaller polyomino that will help fill your boat. Now, ideally, you'd like to fill up your whole boat if you can, because on your boat are all these little rats, and those are negative points. So you want to cover up your rats, unless you do get a card that gives you points for rats. But there's, I think, only one of those. So you want to cover up all these rats and all the spaces possible on your boat, because there's about 5 or 6 different rooms on your boat. And at the end of the game, for any little piece on any room that is uncovered is also worth negative points. So you want to cover as many rooms as possible and not leave any empty spots. And cover the rats as well. The other thing is you want to connect the same color of cats, because then they're considered a family. So if you have, say, 3 green cats together, you might get a certain amount of points. But if you have 6 green cats, you'll get a way higher amount of points. And then depending on your endgame cards that you have, you will also gain points for that. And then there are some public endgame points that as soon as somebody has one of those cards, they have to lay it out so that you can kind of see and work towards as well. It sounds easier than it is, but it's actually a little bit difficult to fill up your board and connect the same colored cats, because you always have to place a tile next to one that's already in the board. So if, say, you have like the red flag on one side and the yellow flag on the other, you can't start building over here and then you get a yellow cat and you can't place it over there. So it's really strategic in that way to try and get, the same colored cats at the beginning, but then also working over towards the other color of cats that you want to connect and then moving around your boat. It's really fun. There's so many different cards that you can score differently, that the game changes dramatically every time. There's also a little family mode that you can play, and you don't use the cards. You're basically just placing the cats and covering up the rats. I haven't tried that one, but that would be good with younger kids or just beginner gamers. Have you played Isle of Cats?
Yeah, actually, I've played it one. During the summer, I did my Melcon, and that was one that we ended up playing. And it was interesting with the card drafting and then adding all those polyominoes onto your ship and kind of trying to fill it in. But we had one player that took so long to decide what to get and where to put it that it took
some AP.
3 hours. A lot of AP
Oh
in
my
this one. It
gosh.
took 3 hours to play the game.
Oh,
Plus,
no.
it was you had all these cat all around, and then you put them awake and then brought the next one. Is oh wait, was this one already there? Did we pick it up? It got cluttered and confusing a little bit. So I have to play this one again.
Yes.
It was really neat. And there's definitely a lot going on. There's a lot going on. This is not just a nice, simple filler game. Definitely.
No.
It was fun. But there was just a few things. I was okay, I don't know if I need to own this one.
Well, you'll have to try it again, because you can easily play that game within an hour. I know when I was watching the Kickstarter, I thought, well, this looks a little bit too simple.
Yeah.
And then I played it actually on the Dice Tower Cruise. A guy introduced it to us, and he said, no, this is actually a gamer's game. You just try it. And so we played it, and we're like, this is so fun. There's so much different things to think about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, Definitely. You'll have to try it with a different group, because it's easily played within an hour for sure.
Yeah, not our game.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, Lee kept coming back in. He's like, "Are you still playing?
Still playing that cat game?
I don't know. This is a game that won't end." All righty, and that was your number 3.
Yes.
Perfect. So my number 3 is Subdivision. It's funny. I'm kind of, because I wrote these down, and the game is Subdivision, but I wrote Subvision. So that's why I'm struggling trying to say the title. So it's Subdivision. It was published in 2014 by Lucas Hedgrens, and it's a Bezier game. This is my second Bezier game in my list here now. They make great games. This one is really neat. So you have board, and it's kind of a map, and there's trees around, and might be trees in the middle, and there's roads, and then you're adding these different tiles, building this city. And like you'll have the school one, and you can build a second one on the school one, make it a bigger school, and it's going to be worth more points, and all these things. And then you roll the dice at the beginning of each round, and that kind of shows you what space you should be building on, because your map has all these different little symbols on it. So if you roll like a red triangle, and I'm not sure now if it's a available shape, but then you gotta be okay, so you can build on the red triangle. Otherwise, you'd have to pay extra to build elsewhere on the map. And it's just such a neat puzzly game, and you're building this, trying to score and trying to make it so that it's optimal for scoring at the end as well. And it's a lot of fun. I got this one, and I got Suburbia around the same time, and I actually had bought the big collector's edition box of Suburbia, and we played Suburbia, and Suburbia was just so much more like difficult with the money and that sort of stuff, and we ended up liking this one better. So I ended up selling my Suburbia, because every time we'd be like, oh, let's play Subdivision instead, and we just pull this one out every time because I liked it better. So but yeah, it was so neat. It's one that I definitely want to play again, because I haven't played it that many times. I just played it the first time, I think it was this last summer here. Oh, yeah, but it was so good. Yeah. So that's my number 3 Subdivision. Or Subdivision, if you follow my handwriting here.
My number 2 is Glenmore Chronicles, or Glenmore 2 Chronicles, made in 2019 by Matthias Kramer. So this is a rondel where there's tiles placed kind of in a rectangle, and you have little meeples, and you'll start on a tile, and you can choose any tile like ahead of you. But if you choose like way too far ahead, the person behind you could have a bunch of turns, because you always get to go, whoever's in last gets to go, kind of like the Nova Luna scoring track.
Yeah.
So you're choosing these tiles to place in your castle. And what you are is you're a Scottish clan in the 19th century, and you're trying to build up your kind of farm. And so you can either have tiles that will give you resources, or tiles that will give you scoring, or they'll let you trade resources for points, or give you barrels of whiskey. You can also trade in the market. So the market is in the middle of the board, which it's really neat too, because if you have a resource and there's money on that row, you can place the resource and take the money. And so if it's at the end and there's $3, you can place a resource, take that tile, or take the money. Or if it's like completely empty, then you only get $1, you place the resource. But it's really neat because you can also get people. Some of these tiles are people, and they will let you go on this board beside the scoring track there and the tile placement. And they'll give you special abilities as well. So you'll place a little disc on there, and then anytime after that, you have to connect your discs to either other people's discs or your discs. But it's a really neat game because it also has 9 different chronicles in the game. So 9 little mini expansions that you can add on as you go. So it starts off with kind of a base game, and then each one will add something. And yeah, I think you can play with them all eventually. But it's such a neat thing to be able to build up your farm, I guess it would be kind of, and you always have to go back to your farm in order to score at the end of each round. And the thing at the end of each round is you will score for however many people you have like near your castle, or how many resources or whiskey barrels. But at the end of the game, like if you've jumped too far ahead and you just take certain tiles, and then the person behind is like, oh, I'm just going to take all these tiles behind. Well, if they have too many tiles at the end, say they have 20 tiles in their board and you only have 15, they're going to get like negative points for however many extra tiles they have than you. So you kind of want to keep it even for however many tiles you have, because you can really lose a lot of points that way. Have you played this one?
No, I don't think so. And I was kind of like, I was like, oh, is that the one I played with? And then you said Rondell, and I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It sounds
really
amazing.
Yeah. It's really fun. And the production is unreal. It's so nice.
Nice. And that was your number 2.
Yes.
So my number 2, and this is a game that I played just after I got into the modern board game. And I got into the modern board game in 2017 after my birthday, because my brother had gotten me some games, and he brought a couple of games like Dominion and Lord of Waterdeep, and I played those. I was like, oh my God. So after that, I went home and I was like, okay, I'm like all hyped on 2 games. And I was like, what games do I have here? And then I had this game that had been gifted to me for Christmas that I hadn't opened yet. It was still in shrink. And I was like, well, let's check this one out. And it was Betrayal of House on the Hill. And this was published in 2004, and it's a game by Avalon Hill Games. And so me and my 2 boys, we opened it, and I got it set up, and it's kind of like, okay, this looks really interesting. And you start in this, and this is another like dungeon crawl one, and it's another haunted mansion one, and you start in the middle area, and then you go through the different doors, and you can move so many spaces, and you can go up the stairs onto the 2nd floor. And at one point there'll be a basement as well. So let's say I'm going over here, and then you have the stack of tiles, and you like, as long as I'm on the main floor, this is, main floor tile. So you flip it over, and now you're in the library, and each room has a different symbol on it. And then depending on what it is, you would get a card. So either you get an item, or like something happens, or you get an omen card, and so on. And you're kind of building this mansion as you're walking through, and at the end of each turn, you have to roll for the haunt. So you have so many omen cards around the table, and you roll, and as long as, when you roll, there's like, the dice have a blank side, and number 1, 2, or 3, I think it is, but it's pips. And as long as you have more pips than omen cards on the table, it's all good. You keep going. So at first it's easy to kind of get through, but now there's getting to be a lot. And all of a sudden you won't have enough pip to cover all the omen cards. And now the haunt begins. And depending on what room triggers it, it's going to be one of the 50 different scenarios. So you open the 50 scenarios, and one of you becomes a traitor, and something happens. Maybe you turn into Dracula or a werewolf or different things depending on the scenario that you turned on. So, and then everybody, and then you separate for a second. So the betrayer takes their book, and then they read the scenario and what they need to do and what their abilities are and the different things. And then everybody else left kind of reads their scenario and how we need to destroy that betrayer now. And it is so neat. It was so cool. And like the whole story and the way that it developed. And this was also the time that I realized, oh my God, my kids are old enough now that we can play cool game. It doesn't have to be Candyland anymore. And it was so cool. And I remember I finished this game, and I called my brother right away, and I thanked him. I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for this game. And he's like, I didn't get you that game. So I'm like, who got me that game? And I got Hunting because I was so excited about it. It had been such a neat experience that I was like, I don't know who got me that game, but I got to find them and thank them because it's amazing. Oh, wow. And I loved it. Yeah.
I had this game.
Betrayal of House on the Hill.
Yeah. And I never got it to the table, so I sold it. But I knew, I was like, oh, I think I would have liked it. But you kind of need a bigger group, right?
You got to be minimum 3.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. And, I thought it was more.
I mean, like from what I understand with the original one, some of the scenarios didn't work out as great. So there has been some complaints about it. They have Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which is more of a fantasy theme instead of like a horror theme. Mm-hmm. And they're actually just publishing a 3rd edition of this one now. So, but yeah, this apparently tends to be my genre. I didn't know about this, but I'm kind of I don't watch horror movies. I don't like to be spooked and jumped or whatever. But in board games, I love it. Apparently, because
you can control it there.
I don't know, but it was just. I remember ending this game, and it felt so epic, and it was so exciting, and I was like, oh my God, I I got to thank this person that got this for me because it was so amazing. But yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Neat. All right, that was your number 2. So my number 1 is Castles of Burgundy, a 2011 game by Stefan Feld. I love this game. I love it so much that I will even play it on Boardgame Arena, which I don't usually play bigger games on there because I can't stand to have to like move my mouse around to see things. I love playing it in person because I love when everything's on the board. But this one is a tiling game. You have a little duchy, it's called, and you're placing all these little tiles that you'll buy from the board. Or you won't buy. You can buy some of them, but you'll have 2 dice everybody rolls, and you use those dice to either take a tile from the board, put it in your duchy, or put it in your storage, and then you'll use another dice to put it from your storage onto your duchy. So you're trying to fill this little duchy that you have, and as soon as you can complete like a color that's clumped together, you'll get a certain amount of points depending on the round. So the earlier the round, the higher the points you'll get. And each of these colors that you place is going to give you a little ability once you place it. So it could give you some coins, which would allow you to buy more tiles from the middle. Or it could give you some workers, which workers will let you adjust the pips up or down. It could give you another whole complete free turn. It could give you just all kinds of things, end game scoring, or it'll let you just pull another tile off the board. It's just such a combo-tastic game. I love my combos. And sometimes you can have one turn where you get about 4 or 5 tiles placed on your board just by how you've pulled them off and used their abilities. And once you've completely covered your board with, say, one color, you'll grab an endgame scoring tile, which is a higher amount. And then the next person to finish that color will get a lower amount. But it's just so fun, just trying to figure out all the combinations that you can get and to fill your board as fast as you possibly can, because I think there's in total 5 actual rounds, but in each round there's also 5 phases, so it's still not that long of a game. Like, I'm sure even in person we finish a 2-player game within an hour. But that's my favorite. They do have a little spin-off called Castles of Tuscany, which is very similar. It's a shorter game with a little bit of a smaller board, and it's awesome as well. But it would be even shorter, like 30 to 45 minutes. But I love both those games.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the early games that I had bought when I got into the modern board games. And it is so neat and satisfying kind of building this thing. Is. And yeah.
It's not even that pretty.
It really is not.
No, and I even have
2 or 3 different shades of green, and so
beige.
it's it's definitely muted tones, but it's still
so fun.
Works.
Yeah, I even have the anniversary edition, and it's a little more colorful, but it's not great.
Like, honestly, for doing the anniversary edition, but we're gonna add more color. They really haven't. Like, it's kind of
no.
Okay,
it's a tad better, and some people even like the original better. But yeah, I think they could have done better with the colors and the production. But it's still such a great game.
It really is all about the gameplay. Because for as muted the colors are, it's still such an amazing game, and that just goes to speak of how good the gameplay is. Yeah, I have also Castle of Burgundy, the dice game.
Yes, that's a good one too.
Yeah,
I love that one.
So,
the card game they have as well. That one is a table hog.
The card game is neat, but it takes a lot of space.
Oh yeah, it's a table hog, but it's fun.
You would think a card game would be like, it makes it smaller, but no.
I think it takes up more space than
That's what I heard. Yeah, actually, it was just last night we're talking about that, how that one was such a table hog.
Yeah.
So okay, so for my number 1, drum roll, it's Keyflower. Oh. I love Keyflower. Keyflower was published in 2012. It's was published by R&D Games. Sebastian Beesdale and Richard Breeze are the designers for this game, and it's just so interesting. And this is, I think, it's like a love-hate game. Not everybody will enjoy this one, but each round you have, and it plays in different seasons. So it's like a 1 year you'll have your spring, your summer, your fall cards, and then your winter cards, and then the game ends. And you have this little shield that you put in front of you, but it's a house, and it's so well detailed, and you'll have like the roof, and you can look inside and all the things that you have, and you have the bag that has all bunch of meeples in it, and then when you start, you kind of pull so many meeples and you put them behind your screen in this house, and there's meeple of different colors. You'll have the yellow ones, the blue ones, and the red ones. And what's really interesting is, like, so at the first start of the season, you flip all these tiles and you start bidding on them or utilizing the tiles. So I could put a yellow meeple and I say, okay, I'm putting this meeple, and these tiles have like 6 sides to them, and the side that's facing me is my side. So that's how we know I'm the one bidding there. So I would put the meeple on that side of the tile, saying, okay, I'm bidding 1 for this tile, and I want to add that tile to my village. And if somebody's going to outbid me, because I've put a yellow meeple on there now, they would have to outbid me with yellow meeples as well. And they have to go higher than my 1, so they could add 2 yellow meeples to kind of outbid me. Then I would get my yellow meeple back. Or I could be like, you know what, while you guys are fighting over who's going to own this one, I'm just going to put my meeple onto it and do the action that it does, and just go ahead and do the action and collect the resources of whatever it is that it does. And by doing that, whoever wins that tile now also gets to take the meeple on top. And it goes, because all the bidding meeples at the end go away and they go back into the bag. But any meeples that's been utilized to utilize that tile before it's purchased, those goes to the player who wins the tile, and they get extra meeples in their house for bidding on future tiles. What gets a little frustrating that I've seen, and I'm personally, that doesn't frustrate me so much, but some people, this is where the game's like, no, I am never playing this again, is like, you can actually, when you start building your village, you can utilize the tile on your village to do the actions as well. But you can place your meeples on other people's village to utilize the tiles they've collected as well. Mm-hmm. And that's where some people's like, oh my God, I was planning on doing this, and you've used it, and you can
so only one person can go on it?
No, you can. So if you put 1 meeple and it's a yellow meeple, I could go with 2 yellow meeples to do that same action as well. But now it's more expensive, and maybe I don't even have yellow meeples, and I was really counting on doing that.
And it's your own tile.
It's my own village, you know what? You just got to play understanding that this whole thing is all everybody's board. But you have these designated tiles, because at the end of the game, depending on what you've done, you score your village, right? So if you've upgraded some of your tiles, because you can flip them over and upgrade them, you can kind of create different things in your village, and you're going to score that village at the end of the game. So, but you can utilize the other village tiles to move things onto your village or to collect resources, or so, yeah. But it is so neat. It is so great. I love the whole bidding mechanism with the meeple, and you can actually get a tile that'll come out, and then you can get green meeples. And what that does is, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bid on this one with the green meeple, and everybody else is like, well, darn you, I don't have green meeples. So now you've kind of got the monopoly here. You know, like, you could still, I have 2 green meeples, I could outbid him, but like, it kind of creates like, this is a smaller market. It's not available to everybody anymore because you need the green meeple to do it. But, and then you can't utilize the tile either and put a meeple onto it unless you have a green meeple, you know, so it is neat. It is such a neat, interesting, fun game. This one is it just blew me away. AP is a huge, huge problem with this if you're playing with somebody, because there's just so many tiles to pick from. What do you want to bid on? Or do you want to do the action? Or what's in everybody's village? Do you want to do one of those actions instead? Like, there's a lot going on that somebody that kind of is like trying to, I mean, I play a game, I take a couple minutes on my turn because, like, I'm playing to play, not necessarily to win. So I don't care if I didn't do the optimal move.
Right.
But
Yeah.
some people really want to
yeah.
do that optimal move, so they got to calculate everything. And then by the time they finally take their turn, the next person has kind of been waiting, so they're waiting and they're waiting, and don't realize it's their turn. And then you're waiting another 5 minutes, kind of like, whose turn is it anyways? No. It's your turn. It's like, but people think you're just staring at the board trying to figure out what you want to do. So it can get a little bit lengthy because of that. And then some people feel that having the full 4 season you play through makes it already a little bit lengthy.
Oh, yeah.
But the whole gameplay is just so amazing that I think it still makes it worthwhile. I love it.
Huh. I really want to try this game. Do you own this?
I own this.
Yeah.
Now, because I love Keyflower so much, I want to go and get the rest of the Key series, the Cathedral and the Keeper, and and I haven't come across those ones yet, so I haven't bought any other one of the Key series, but this one is so great that
I want to try this one.
Well, it's funny because I got this one as a birthday gift from my brother.
Yeah.
And what he did, he's like, "Oh, I got you a game for your birthday," because he always tells me. He's like, "Do you want to know what it is?" I was like, "No, I don't want to know what it is." I'll send you clues, and he's sending me like pictures of really zoomed in pictures of like this tiny little corner of the. And I'm trying to figure out now. I was like, "What game is this?" So yeah, and that was Keyflower. So it was a gift, and it's such a great game.
Can you play it with 2 people, or is it 3 up?
No, I think I can play it at 2 people. I haven't double checked. Oh, let me see. I think I have it on here. I don't know if I have played it at 2 people. I think I might have. I know we've played it with the kids. It says 2 to 6 player, best at 4.
Okay. Best of 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I want to try that game for sure.
It's so good. It's so good.
Awesome. So that was your number 1.
That's right. Now, next week, we're going to be doing our top 9 pirate-themed games.
Yes, pirates.
That's right. So that'll be great. So be sure to come and check us out for that on next Monday. Any parting words? Anything you want to say, Carla, before we end this one?
Well, this was a tough list for me. I love tile placement games. I probably had about 50 to choose from of my own. That was really hard to narrow down. So hopefully they can show up in some other list some way.
We may have to do the next 9 again on this one. This one was not a hard one to get a list together.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
Well,
the
to narrow down, one, but
I'm struggling a little bit more on coming up with the 9 pirates. Games, so I might get creative again on the meaning of the theme. Perfect. Awesome. Well, we'll leave it at this, and then we'll be back next week.
Yeah, we'll be next week with our favorite pirate-themed games. So we will see you next week. Bye for now.